because they have like a area where they have music, and then they have like a little bar in the back, and it's like a lot of people.
Yeah, so about to get started.
Yeah.
And I have a camera there, so what I try to do is record these and then put it up on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah. So the reason why I decided to pick Walter Rodney as the topic is because yesterday was his birthday actually, and they had a symposium commemorating his life, and yeah, he's the author of that book right there, How You're Underdeveloped Africa.
He wrote a book about
Walter Rodney.
Walter Rodney.
The significance of Walter Rodney, there's two aspects about of his life that I want to speak about. The first was Walter Rodney as an educator. He was a professor of African history, but the significant thing about Walter Rodney, he wasn't just a professor in the university. He was known for what they call in Jamaica groundings, which means he would go out amongst the people to sit down and have discussions on African history, politics, whatever topics among the masses. So it was a very grassroots approach of educating people. And that's a tradition I try to do myself, which is why we have weekly discussions here, wherever else I see African people gathering to have these discussions. I'll participate and contribute the information I have. And the reason why Walter Rodney did this, his approach was what he called putting African history in the service of black liberation, which meant that himself as a historian, he was putting himself in the service of the black masses, putting himself in the service of the struggle, because he didn't believe that a black academic should just be a person sitting up in a classroom, researching, writing books, lecturing, doing that kind of stuff, disconnected from the struggle of the masses. He felt, as academics, people that have the background, the understanding of history and politics needed to be directly there with the masses, working towards their liberation. So that's one of the significant aspects of who he was. He wasn't just this academic writing books, he gave lectures, he was just struggling with the masses, and that became a problem when he was in Jamaica. He taught in Jamaica. The government of Jamaica actually banned him from the island because they were very, very afraid of his brother that's going down there among the masses, not only teaching African history, but also telling them, this government in Jamaica, even though it's a black government, it's not serving black interests.
They're being funded by Europeans giving money to take over the island for hotels.
Yeah, exactly. But and obviously they didn't want a professor going around there and exposing that to the masses, so they ended up banning him from Jamaica. He's from Guyana, and same thing when he went back to Guyana, he couldn't get a job teaching at the university in Guyana. So what Walter Rodney explored, and like Guyana, the same thing, this is the black government. So what you start finding is these Caribbean countries that were formerly colonies that have now become independent, they were very uncomfortable with this black man actually teaching people real history, African history, but also educating people on the political circumstances, because he let people know that you might have a black government in charge, but you're still not independent. You're still dominant by foreign forces, and it's not serving the people. So that's one aspect of who Walter Rodney was. Now the other aspect I want to talk about, which is also significant to the work I'm doing, he was a Pan-Africanist. I'm sure you're all familiar with Pan-Africanism. But again, his approach was a very mass-based approach. So when he was a professor in Tanzania, because Walter Rodney is a professor taught around the world. Now he's in Tanzania, and when you read his writings from that period, he's very critical of the governments across Africa, because again, it's the same situation where we have independence, we're no longer colonies, and these are countries controlled by African people, but we're still not independent. We're still dominated by these foreign forces. These are governments that are still oppressing the masses. And I find that especially significant today, because a lot of Pan-Africanists, in trying to reconnect to Africa, we don't identify those issues. So we have a lot of people, for example, I know in the Caribbean, organizations that have established contacts with the African Union and with certain African governments, but they're not really speaking to the conditions of the masses or speaking to the corruption that you find within certain African.
That's right. At least when I researched what I've seen, it's mostly because we have countries like the United States, France, Germany, the UK, because they want the minerals.
That's
Africa is full of natural resources.
The thing with colonialism was Europeans going there to take control of resources. And when independence came, what the Europeans realized is, well, we can give them political independence, meaning we don't necessarily have to have political control and still control the resources. So they put certain puppet governments in place.
Puppet government, warlords.
Yeah, warlords. Because what happens is that's why I've been so involved in the Togo situation. The president of Togo decided we want to break away from the French currency and establish our own currency. Well, suddenly he's assassinated, and they put this dictator in power. Now this dictator Ayedema, he was a former soldier in the French colonial army. So these are people that served colonialism that they were putting in power, positions of influence. So these are the European puppets that are putting in power. And this is the 1960s.
Follow money. So you're not supposed to always follow that money.
Yeah.
and then see who's in charge and see which way they sway the vote or whatever.
So, what I was saying about Rodney, that's why he's significant, because he was one of the Pan-Africanists that I've been pointing out, and I've noticed a lot of Pan-Africanists don't want to make that connection, so they think Pan-Africanism is just, go back to Africa or establish contacts with Africa, and Walter Rodney talks about, well, no, you actually have to establish contacts with the masses and, help them in their struggle, which is one of the things I've been doing with Togo. But yeah, people have this, approach of, Pan-Africanism, just kind of a feel-good, like we'll just go to Africa.
Yeah, like sing kumbaya,
Yeah,
eat African food. Yeah.
And Trinidad, I was speaking about this recently. Trinidad's got what they call Emancipation Day in honor of when slavery was abolished. So they've had situations where they'll invite African dictators to come down to Trinidad and have a celebration with African dictators, and no one will say anything but the fact that this man's a dictator oppressing his own people in Africa. So I think those aspects of Walter Rodney are very significant to some of the issues we have today, because a lot of our intellectuals aren't connected with the masses in that sense. Like I said, these are intellectuals who sit up in these universities, and, make a good living off of their positions. And
just like you just said, they make a good living off these positions. They get a lot of money for but I don't know if they get assassinated.
Yeah.
I don't know if they get assassinated.
I mean, that happens to Walter Rodney.
You talk that liberation. Liberation comes in all the money. So you talk about liberation money, that's what you try to put bullet in there. It's reality. Like they just killed I forgot her name in Brazil.
Oh yeah.
Franco.
Yeah.
I mean, Brazil is horrible, and that's what I was saying too with the Pan-African thing, because a lot of us we don't really understand what's goes on in Brazil, because we think about police brutality here in Brazil. It's horrible.
It's horrible.
10 times worse. It's horrible.
Yeah, I know.
We're not even talking police, this is military police now. People with military equipment that will just go into these communities, just shoot people for no reason. Because the thing that she was exposing before she got killed was they went into the slums recently, killed a couple people, and just dumped the bodies in a ditch somewhere. So that's what's going on in Brazil. And I guess we have a lot of Pan-Africanists, running around preaching Pan-Africanism, but who's really pointing out those things and trying to connect with what's going on in Brazil? But yes, terrible. And even
yeah, I think, like you said, I think the issue is that there's a point where, as a Pan-Africanist, you say to yourself, well, I know what's going on, and I'm ready to pass. I'm living in the present, and I want to see a new future. But at the same time, deep down inside, you're like, well, if I say something, and if I go against this momentum that's already been in place, that's it for me. I'm pretty much writing my death warrant. Because, and I think a lot of people are afraid of that, and then that's why they don't talk out as much or is as visible as much. You know what I mean? And then, but if you get enough people together, in my opinion, you can't get rid of everything.
Well, I mean,
you know what I'm saying? But you have to get enough people
quick,
and that's the grassroots.